It was just another Friday night and here I was, home alone, with my parents gone for the weekend. I'd been looking forward to this. No rules, no bedtime, just me, my games, and a stack of horror movies that I was way too psyched to watch. But let me tell you, nothing on those screens could have prepped me for what was about to go down. It started off pretty chill. I was halfway through a pizza and deep into some zombie flick when the first weird thing happened. The TV just flickered to static. At first, I just shrugged it off, fiddling with the remote, thinking maybe the weather was messing with the signal. But then, the landline rang. I picked it up, and there was just this silence. Not the normal kind, but a heavy, thick silence that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I hung up, trying to shake off the creeps. As I went back to my movie, I saw Rex, my dog, standing in the hallway, growling at nothing. His growls were deep, the kind that told me he was seriously freaked out about something. I tried to calm him, but he just wouldn't quit. That's when the room went pitch black. Power outage. Great. With only my phone's flashlight to guide me, I went to the kitchen to grab some candles. That's when I heard it, the sound of glass breaking from the back of the house. It was subtle, almost like someone was trying to be quiet about it. My heart was racing now. This was no accident. Someone was in the house. I crept towards the back, my phone light casting long shadows. The kitchen window was cracked open, the curtains swaying slightly. Okay, Brandon, think. I needed to act smart. My phone was upstairs in my room, and I had to get to it. But first, I needed a weapon. I grabbed a knife from the drawer just as I heard whispers. Low, menacing whispers coming from just outside the window. I froze, listening. They were planning, deciding how to search the house. My stomach churned. Cautiously, I moved away from the kitchen and tiptoed upstairs, clutching the knife with sweaty palms. As I reached the top of the stairs, I could hear them footsteps, heavy and cautious. One of the intruders was upstairs with me. Panic set in, but I forced myself to stay calm. I ducked into the bathroom, locking the door quietly behind me. Check over there, and be quick about it, a gruff voice echoed in the hallway. They were looking for something, or someone. Me. I texted 911 and my parents, hiding my phone's glow as best as I could. Every second felt like an hour as I waited, praying they'd get here soon. Then I heard the footsteps coming closer. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure they could hear it. Suddenly, the handle jiggled. I held my breath, pressing myself against the door. The jiggling stopped, and the footsteps moved away. I didn't dare move. Not yet. After what felt like forever, I heard them head downstairs. This was my chance. I slipped out of the bathroom, creeping along the hallway to my room. I locked the door behind me and pushed my dresser against it, just as I heard the first siren in the distance. They must have heard it too because the next thing I knew, there was a rush of movement downstairs. The front door slammed, and then, silence. The police found me in my room, barricaded behind my dresser, knife still in hand. They checked the house and assured me the intruders were gone, but promised to keep a patrol car nearby just in case. When my parents got back, I tried to act tough, like it hadn't shaken me. But honestly, I've never been so scared in my life. That night, I learned a lot about myself. I always thought I'd be brave, like the heroes in those movies. But bravery isn't about not being scared. It's about what you do when you are scared. And now, every sound in this house makes me jump. I keep telling myself I'm safe, but sometimes, in the dark, I'm not so sure. So yeah, that was my weekend. Movies, pizza, and a couple of uninvited guests. Let's just say, I'm seriously looking forward to a boring night of too much homework and early bedtimes for a change. You know that feeling when you're home alone and every little noise sounds like a monster from a horror flick? That was me, last Friday night. My parents had gone to some fancy gala and wouldn't be back until late, so the plan was just me, a stack of DVDs, and the rain tapping against the windows. Cozy, right? But that's when things started getting weird. I was about halfway through a zombie apocalypse movie when the doorbell rang. Weird timing, huh? Pulling myself off the couch, I checked the peephole and saw my buddy Mark, soaked to the bone and shivering like crazy. He said his bike had tanked in the middle of the storm and his phone was dead. What else could I do but let him in? We dried off and threw some popcorn in the microwave. Mark was his usual self, cracking jokes and making me laugh. It was almost like one of our regular hangouts, except for the storm raging outside. Then, the power started to flicker. A few times the house went completely dark for a couple of seconds before the lights stuttered back to life. Creepy, right? As we sat there in the dim flicker of the TV screen, odd things began to happen. A picture frame that sat perfectly on the mantel for years suddenly tipped over and crashed to the floor. Then, heavy footsteps thumped from upstairs. I froze. We were supposed to be alone. And then, the unmistakable sound of glass breaking from the back of the house made my heart skip a beat. Mark laughed it off, said it was probably just the house settling or something, but his laugh didn't reach his eyes, which kept darting around, as if he was listening for something else. I tried to shake off the unease creeping up my spine, telling myself it was just the storm and the movie getting to me. But then, the power cut completely. The TV went dead, and we were left in utter darkness. Mark's voice changed then. He wasn't joking anymore. His words were hushed, tense, as he asked me weird questions like where my parents kept their expensive stuff and if we had a safe. Why would he ask that? Panicking, I said I needed to find my phone to use as a light. I stumbled around in the dark, feeling for it, but found only the empty case. My heart was pounding now. Where was my phone? A sick feeling twisted in my stomach as I realized Mark might have taken it. Then I heard it, the soft murmur of Mark's voice, whispering into what sounded like a walkie-talkie. He was saying things like, "Yeah, the kid's clueless," and "No, he doesn't suspect a thing." I felt betrayed and scared. My best friend, planning something terrible behind my back? I had to do something. Pretending I hadn't heard a thing, I told Mark maybe there were more candles in the basement. He followed me down the creaking steps, still talking quietly into his walkie-talkie. As soon as he stepped inside, I slammed the door shut and locked it. I could hear him shouting and banging on the door, but I ran upstairs. I dialed 911 from the landline in the kitchen, my hands shaking so bad I could barely hold the phone. I told the operator everything, whispering so no one else in the house could hear me. I didn't know how many people Mark had brought with him, or where they were. Hiding in the pantry, I held my breath, listening to the chaos outside as the storm continued to rage. It felt like forever before I heard the sirens and the reassuring voices of the police. They found Mark and two other guys, all hiding in the house, ready to rob us blind. They thought I'd be an easy target, just a dumb kid alone at home. But I showed them. My parents were shocked but proud of how I'd handled things. So, yeah, that's the story of how my supposed best friend tried to rob me during a storm. It's weird how things turn out, isn't it? One minute you're just chilling, and the next, you're in your own real-life horror story. Trust me, nothing's been the same since that night. Even the smallest noise makes me jump now, and I double-check all the locks before I can even think about relaxing. Who knew a stormy night could turn into such a nightmare? I never thought being alone could be so terrifying until that stormy night when I was 12. It started as an adventure, my first night alone while my folks dashed off to the hospital to check on my grandpa. They thought I was brave enough, and I convinced myself I was too. The evening kicked off just fine. I piled up snacks, queued up my favorite movies, and nestled into the couch with a blanket. But as night crept in, the storm outside grew fierce. The wind howled like it was calling my name, and the rain beat against the windows so hard I thought the glass might give way. Then, the lights flickered, a warning of what was coming. One moment I was sitting there in the soft glow of the lamp, and the next, everything went black. The power was out. I remember my heart starting to race as I fumbled around in the dark, trying to find the flashlight I knew was in a drawer. Light in hand, I moved to light some candles around the living room. The flickering candlelight made the shadows dance on the walls, turning familiar furniture into looming figures. Trying to calm my nerves, I told myself it was just a normal night, just with a bit more thunder. But then I heard it, the first real sign of trouble, a scraping sound coming from the back of the house. Not just the wind or a fallen branch, but something deliberate. I peeked through the curtains, my hands trembling as I held them aside. In the backyard, illuminated by the occasional flash of lightning, I saw the outline of someone moving. Not just any someone, but a man, lurching back and forth like a shadow brought to life. Panic set in. I dialed my parents, no answer. Then I tried to reach our neighbor, Mr. Henderson, but all I got was voicemail. It felt like the world had cut me off, leaving me alone to face whatever was out there. The noises didn't stop. They got closer and louder, a thudding now, like someone was trying to force their way into my sanctuary. The back door handle jiggled, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. I needed to hide. I dashed to the pantry, a small room off the kitchen, and shut the door as quietly as I could. Inside, I crouched among the shelves, holding my breath, trying not to make a sound. The house groaned under the strain of the storm, or maybe it was the weight of the uninvited guest. I could hear footsteps, uneven and heavy, dragging across the kitchen floor. Each step seemed louder than the last, each breath the intruder took filled with a raspy gurgle. The air grew cold, and a musty smell seeped under the pantry door. My imagination ran wild. Was it the stench of the grave? Of decay? Suddenly, the soft shuffle of footsteps paused right outside the pantry door. My heart stopped. I could hear a low, mumbling voice, speaking incoherent words as if talking to someone unseen. The doorknob twisted slowly, terror gripped me. I pushed against the door with all my might, barely holding it shut. Then, something miraculous happened. Headlights swept through the kitchen window, casting light on the intruder. It was Mr. Henderson. He had seen my message and come to check on me. The figure in the kitchen bolted, disappearing back into the storm from which he had emerged. The police arrived minutes later. They found the back door forced open and muddy footprints all over the floor. They told me the man was probably homeless, seeking shelter from the storm, maybe even more scared than I was. But in those moments of terror, he was every nightmare I'd ever had come to life. After that night, I wasn't the same. I had faced my deepest fears, the ones that lurk in the shadows when you're alone, the ones that whisper you're not safe, even in your own home. But I had survived. I learned that bravery isn't about not being scared, it's about what you do when you were scared. So now, when I tell this story, I think about how that night changed me. It taught me about vulnerability, about the presence of danger, and about the strength we find when we think we have none left. It reminded me of the importance of community, of having someone to call for help. And maybe, just maybe, it'll remind you too that no matter how dark the night, no matter how fierce the storm, you're never truly alone.